This is the streets of Milan, Italy, on March 7th, 2020, bustling with life and people everywhere. This is the streets of Milan just 5 days later. Barren and empty, with practically no one in sight. That's Adam, who took the videos. He's a University of Guelph graduate and was just recently in Milan for an internship when the COVID-19 virus took the country by storm. On March 27th, I sat down to speak to Adam to hear his experience abroad, and this is his story. Adam, hi.
Thanks for joining me.
So, why don't you explain to us kind of who you are and what you'd been going to school for?
So I just graduated from the University of Guelph in April, and I had an internship in Milan in January. So it was a landscape architecture firm based in Milan, and it was supposed to be a 3-month stint with an extension possible.
What was what was kind of life like in Milan before everything started?
You sent me a video of you biking. Can you describe that? What would you do there?
Oh yeah, I mean Milan, it's a big city, but it's very walkable. I think you could walk from one end to the other in like an hour and a half. So just rent a bike. You can basically see anything within 30 minutes on a bike. So it's actually pretty important in Milanese culture because you grab your food, whatever, and then you go on the street. There's the bars are very small, so it's just it's street life, and it's the middle of winter, but they have the heaters everywhere, so you have the streets completely packed with people like it's a full restaurant. So that's kind of Milan streets are just full of people always with heaters because that's all there is to do really, stand around and have your little food and whatever.
So, when was coronavirus first kind of you noticed it? What was the first detection or
The first moment you got a little worried?
Well, I remember I was with my cousins in the north of Italy, and that weekend there was a huge spike, and that would have been, I believe, I think that was 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure, but there was a big spike, and they were mocking everyone they were calling them alarmists. Everyone was an alarmist. If you're saying don't go out in public, you're an alarmist, and you're trying to hurt the economy, that kind of stuff.
Wow. So they were.
Yeah, so they were downplaying. They were downplaying it big time. All my cousin's friends were just mocking it. And then on the train ride home, I was doing some reading, and I was shocked by how many cases there were already. Yeah, there was talking about how areas are now in the red zone. Piacenza's in the red zone, and you shouldn't be leaving that area. So I'm reading that and I'm saying, okay, well, the news is telling me one thing. My cousins are saying downplay it. So then on the Monday, I went to work, and some people that had underlying conditions weren't there, but I didn't know anything about it. No one gave me an email, nothing like that. So everything that I was hearing was just from the news sources.
So sorry, Adam. You're
At the actual architecture firm, they weren't really saying anything themselves.
you saw people just disappearing.
Yeah, they were just. I knew what was going on, so I saw people weren't there, and I asked my friend, I said, what's happening? He said, so and so has a heart condition, so he's not coming in today because of the coronavirus. I said, okay, and he's like, yeah, you have the option to work at home if you want to.
How are you feeling, first of all, when you have family telling you one thing and then business saying another?
How are you feeling at that point?
Well, for me, it would go in waves because this is exactly what it'd be like. You'd go on the street, still there, having their drinks, having their food. The work is pretty much the same, minus a couple people. And then, so you feel calm, and then you go on the news, you go on your phone and look at the news, and you get, a rush of panic when you see the numbers aren't stopping. You have the president saying, we have, I think, 15 days till total collapse of the hospitals. And then you go into work and it's business as usual. No one's people are still mocking it, people aren't really taking it seriously. And that's how I was too. I mean, you kind of just, okay, it must be nothing. Then it must just be being played up because it's fine here. I walk around and it's fine. So I would say it just goes in waves of panic when you're reading one thing and you're seeing another.
When was normal finally changed?
It was that Sunday that I was on the train reading when the first cases started breaking. The next Monday was probably the weirdest.
When I went to the grocery store, the meat was gone. There was no, like, it was an empty shelf. And then on Saturday was the day I was biking around. It was like back, like Milan was back to normal, completely normal. Maybe that had to do with the good weather.
And then that night, there was a total lockdown of the region of Lombardia.
Okay, that's the region that Milan's in, right?
Yeah, so that night is when it completely changed because there was an actual enforcement of the lockdown.
On the Sunday, I got an email saying that we're not allowed to go into work anymore. So we had to completely convert to smart working. I think it took them 1 day, and then we were up and running with smart working, just remote desktop kind of thing. But yeah, then that was when the quarantine for me started, really, because that would have been March 7th, I think.
Okay, so you're at home at the end of that week. You're stuck at home.
Yeah, you had to have a certain sheet that you could download online, and you have to sign it and say why you're out, and it had to be a valid reason.
What would the consequence be if you didn't have that form?
I'm not sure exactly, but I know.
And I remember reading on the La Repubblica, which is the Italian newspaper, like the national newspaper, that you could receive, I think, 3 months jail time.
What were you then feeling at that point?
Well, then it's like, okay, well, now this is serious. I mean,
and then I was like, why am I even staying here? Another month of rent's coming. I was like, might as well just go home. Like, if I'm doing the same work, if all I need is my laptop, I don't see the point of staying here anymore because we're legally not allowed to see each other.
And then at that point too, they started closing the parks. Any park that was fenced in, they were just closing because the parks ended up becoming as full as restaurants because people were just wanting to get out of the house. So they had to enforce that to make sure everyone was staying inside.
So you were getting out kind of to do some grocery shopping still, and you sent me some videos and some pictures. Can you describe me when, like, we were just talking about how lively and
full those streets were? Describe what those streets were when.
Yeah, it's basically the only people on the street were. I saw one family with groceries. You saw a bunch of people with video cameras. Somebody they were just documenting it. It was really just people with groceries and people with video cameras.
But they were completely silent.
Yeah, it was dead. At that point, they all took it pretty seriously.
that's pretty much in a week change. Like, that's quick.
Yeah.
You couldn't even move between borders in Italy at that point, like the provincial borders or not provincial, the regional borders. So I thought if I'm going to be moving through borders, I might as well just go home. And at that point, the U.S. was canceling flights from Europe.
Were you getting worried you weren't going to get back home?
I was getting a little worried, but I always felt that I was gonna get home at one way or the other. But the thing was that I was looking at flights, and some of them were 3,000 euros to go from Milan to Toronto.
I tried getting on the first flight possible, which was it was on the Sunday before the Linate airport closed in Milan, because they were only the government put in a rule that every region would only have one airport open, so they were closing down lots of airports. The one that I actually went to.
You were telling me this earlier. You got the last
Day you could get out
From that airport.
from that airport, but that was like the closest airport to you, right?
Yeah, that was the city airport.
But then after that, like I said, the ones flying out of Milan, which is the international airport, or no, not international, but the bigger airport. The flights were like crazy, and they were insane journeys too. It was 30 hour, like some of them were 30-hour trips, and you have to go to Egypt first, then Egypt to Ukraine, then Ukraine to Canada. So it was very complicated and just not worth it.
Yeah.
Was there still any worry in that airport? Like, first of all, what was the feeling in the airport when you got there?
Oh, well, it was actually kind of crazy because in Linate, a bunch of flights were canceled on the Sunday too.
Really?
I'm not sure why, but there was only, I believe, 4 flights flying out on that Sunday, and I was just worried that each flight cancellation was going to be mine. But luckily, I'm not sure why, but luckily mine wasn't canceled. But the airport was dead, and people were taking their social distancing seriously, about like 3 meter distance, which is maybe overkill, but I'm okay with that.
So then you then managed to get home. What was it like getting back then?
Um, well, also too, I was expecting more precautions being taken in Pearson.
Yeah.
So I went through customs, and they asked if I was coming from Iran, China, or Italy, and I said Italy.
He asked me to put on a mask. He asked me to fill out a form saying where I was sitting, what flight I took, where my contact information, just in case. Apparently, they were doing that in case someone became positive. They would be able to track down where they were sitting on the plane, and people that might have come into contact with them.
But then on my customs receipt, the guy behind the counter put a bunch of marks on my form. Like I've never seen all these marks before. Orange highlighter, red pen, blue pen. Like I'm not even kidding. Like it was basically like he was drawing on the receipt.
And then after I got my bag, I brought it to the guy that you give it to when you're leaving, like after you have your bag. And he looked at it and literally said, "I don't know what the hell they're doing up there."
Like he didn't understand what was on the sheet. So there was a lack of coordination I found at Pearson. I was expecting a little bit more, I don't know, precautions, but it was basically the same other than him drawing on my receipt.
But as the guy, so the guy who wrote on my receipt, the guy beside the booth, when he found out the elderly couple next to me was coming from Italy, he was very aggressive, said, "Take 2 steps back." They took steps back, said, "Take more steps back."
There was just people doing different things. I don't know. It seemed like there was no briefing almost. Like they didn't really know how to handle it. That's what I found. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's more to it than that, but it seemed pretty relaxed.
I'm doing the 14-day quarantine anyways, so.
Did they tell you at the airport that you had to do those quarantine?
No one told me that. I'm just basing off of what I'm reading on CBC and all that kind of stuff, like online.
So you self quarantining right now. That's just you made that decision for what you've seen in the news.
Just like you're doing that.
Yeah, off of what I've seen on the news, public health, all that kind of stuff. But no one at Pearson told me that.
How did you also you just got back from Italy. Did a family member, did your sister just pick you up and then go back?
How did you get back to the farmhouse?
So my dad picked me up and he handed me a thing of Lysol wipes. I wiped down my suitcase, my backpack, all that stuff, and then I sat in the back seat with the mask on.
Yeah, did you just get this too?
Yeah, so we just got a notification here saying travelers returning to Ontario, you are at high risk of spreading COVID-19. You are required by law. So that's news to me. You're required by law to self-isolate for 14 days. Yeah. You don't visit stores, family, or friends.
Yeah.
That was interesting to happen while we were talking about that. That's what you need
To be told when you were getting back to the airport.
I think so, at least. I don't know.
I think so.
So tell me about your quarantining now. Where are you now?
So now I'm in the forest. I'm in Ancaster. So my uncle has a house here in the woods.
Because he's living somewhere else, so I'm living here with my sister just for 14 days. I'm still working from here in Milan remotely on my laptop.
Do you want your sister to come say hi? She's all quarantined.
Alice, you want to come say hi?
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, how are
Good. You staying sane over there?
you? No, barely.
Yeah, I think she's doing a little worse than I am, but
I guess I had the warm up because I was already in quarantine for 7 days, I think. 4. I think for me now it's the 21st day.
What was your family's reaction?
I mean they've been dropping off some food, but they'll leave it on the doorstep. They don't want to risk it either. So.
Any final words of your whole story, what you've gone through?
Your final thoughts after all that happening?
I would say take it seriously.
Because I saw in Italy, everyone started to relax, and then there was a huge spike in cases, and then that's why we needed to actually have the government come in and say it is now illegal to go to the restaurants or to hang out. So I think
we should be able to do that before it cracks down to that. So yeah, I'd say take it seriously because it is serious.
Thank you, Adam, for doing this interview.
thanks for having me.
I wish you the best of luck in quarantine.
Thank you. You too. I mean, you're in self-isolation, aren't you? Yeah, okay, so we all are.
We're all in this together type of thing.
There. All right, man.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
I'll see you, Adam.